At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
All right, welcome to the Author Brand Show. Today, you're going to want to take notes because we've got a great guest on today. He is a business speaker who truly speaks from experience, and he regularly addresses business leaders throughout the world and is consistently ranked among the best ones. He's an experienced, inspirational sales trainer, sales coaching expert, inspires audiences to take action in areas of sales management, corporate culture, and sales training. He brings 30 plus years of field experience from a starting from a base as a CPA firm with Arthur Andersen to the CEO level of several national companies. He's a proven entrepreneur and CEO. He's built 6 companies into national firms, 2 of which subsequently he sold to Wall Street firms Salomon Brothers and First Boston. His role as a sales trainer extraordinaire has helped craft street-tested methodologies that help create truly successful sales professionals and profitable companies. Now, his professional sales trainer knows how he has the know-how and has turned him into an accomplished sales coaching authority. He's authored several books, including Hypersales Growth, the Sales Playbook for Hypergrowth Sales for Hypersales Growth, and the Paper Napkin Wisdom, all Amazon #1 bestsellers. His newest title is Life by Design by our guest today, Mr. Jack Daly. Jack, how are you today?
Doug, I'm fantastic. I just came off of a 4-day weekend and survived Las Vegas with my money intact.
Wow. Is that because you just didn't gamble, or you actually were successful, or what? How'd that work?
I held my own at the blackjack table. Let's just put it that way.
Good man. That's impressive. So your sales experience is obviously well known amongst a lot of companies, whatnot, and it's probably the #1 topic that sales professionals and leadership and organizations want to learn about. But there's a lot of variety here. Right? There's a lot of people talk about being aggressive and cold calling and attraction marketing. Is there a particular methodology I think we can learn today from you that's unique?
Well, you know what? I'd rather start than focusing on sales initially. I'd rather shift over to the sales management side of the house. And I'll come back to sales. I'm going to tell you why. In most cases, the majority of companies are interested in growing the revenue line. They're interested in growing their sales. And so the limitation I have as an individual salesperson is hours of the day. There are only so many. Therefore, I can only knock on so many doors. I can only make so many calls, take so many calls, write so many orders.
Yeah.
But if I were to hire maybe 5 people and teach them the systems that I know that will make them successful as salespeople, those 5 people will outperform me. And eventually, if I take it instead of 5, I make it 10 or 20 or 50. And my largest sales force, quite frankly, was 2,600 salespeople.
Whoa.
Now, that is an organization now that has a robust revenue line. So what I like to tell my clients is a sales manager's job is not to grow sales. It is to grow salespeople in quantity and quality. And if you grow salespeople in quantity and quality, they will in turn grow your sales. So the thing that I would like the viewer to really wrestle down is whoever is in charge of the sales team, what % of their time are they selling? And what % of the time are they recruiting, training, coaching, and building out the sales team? Because the latter is where you grow.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I know that I've seen time studies on this where, people say they're working really hard, but if they actually quantify their actual moment by moment, it's like working an hour or 2 a day, really. It's just a lot of...
Without a doubt, and I'll make it worse. So we're all given the same number of hours a week, 168. But we don't really have that 168 at our disposal because we sleep, let's call it 8 hours a day. We lose 56 there. Then you got to eat and exercise and whatever else. So you're left about 40 to 60 hours to actually work, whether that's selling or sales management or what have you.
Right.
And so when we go into organizations, Doug, what we find is more than 50% of a salesperson's time is not spent on winning new customers and growing the ones they have.
Right.
More than 50% of their time is on activities that don't materialize into something. So our mantra is HPAs, high payoff activities. That's the key. right?
Yeah. Yeah. Here, I have a quick story for you. You can comment on this however you want, but I used to be a salesperson for Nextel Communications, and the top guys was me and one other person. We were the top two guys in the Chicago office, and they wanted to promote us, and we're like, nah, I don't want to be a manager. I just like getting out the field. So they promoted the next guy down, right? Makes sense. And one day he calls me into my office, hey, Doug, I want to talk to you about your sales numbers. Like, okay, yeah. Says, I noticed you're like driving around the city, dropping off like leather cases for a phone. You should just put that in the mail. That's low quality activity. I don't want you to do that. You need to be selling. I'm like, all right, Steve, let me ask you a question. You ever sold 100 phones in a month? He says, no. I goes, what can I possibly learn from you? It's kind of rude, but I was like, man, don't tell me how to run my business. He didn't realize when I was dropping off a cell phone case, I was working on the other currency of relationships, which I'm sure you'll agree is more valuable than money. My gosh, I got so many referrals for my service that I didn't need to cold call anymore.
Yeah. So if I unpack the comment, the first thing I would unpack is I wish businesses would stop calling it a promotion. Because when they call it a promotion, it's as if every salesperson should desire to be there. They'll feel like their worth is not at the level it should be because they didn't get promoted. The worst thing that we do with salespeople in most cases is give them a sales manager's job. It's an entirely different skill set, and most of them are not going to be happy. So I encourage salespeople, if you love being a salesperson, there's nothing better than that. Yeah. Why would you want to be in charge of other people, recruiting, training, coaching, building, and all that type of thing? Yeah. So God bless you for knowing that was your sweet spot, and that's where you wanted to stay. Right?
Yeah. It's a Peter principle, right? So it's very interesting. Yeah, know what you're good at, and for me, it was just going in the office versus being out in the field. It was much more interesting to go out and meet customers than to sit behind a desk and look at reports. It was
my son is a super salesperson, but every moment that some company tries to put them behind a desk, he's looking for a new opportunity. He wants to be, as you say, building relationships and trading off of his innate skill, which is relationships, right? People to people, face to face, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned something about growing salespeople, not growing sales, as being obviously you're planting seeds and building the person. What are the key things you've seen in that as you work with all these different organizations? What's the biggest growth opportunity you've seen with as a sales manager?
These things right here, they're really, really powerful in selling. But most salespeople think that this is the selling tool, right? And so the shortest course on sales that could be taught or learned is just 4 words: ask questions and listen. And so what I have done my whole life, and I started selling at 7 years old. I owned the market and charged twice the price of every kid I competed with. What I learned at an early stage is to put my person inside the prospect and say, when I care more about them than me, the sales will materialize. So what I need to find out is what I'm about, what I'm offering, my product or service, is it a good fit for this person's pain? People buy to get out of pain or get into pleasure. So the only way I can figure out if I'm a good fit is to discover what their pains and pleasures are. And the only way I do that is by asking questions. Pretty simple process.
Yeah. It's simple on the surface, but of course, as sales people, we often run into the fact that I think I understand your pain, and here's the solution, but they don't see it or feel it or whatever it is. It's pretty a general question, but I want to get your feedback on that.
Yeah, here's why that takes place.
Yeah,
because so often the leadership within the company is pushing the salesperson to make more calls and to get the deal done quickly. And that isn't necessarily the sign of success. So just as your example of going out and giving these phone cases to 100 people and doing 100 deals in a month, that's ideal. I need to go out. I need to interact with people, but I don't need to sell them anything. I've never met anyone who said, man, I love it when somebody tries to sell me. Like, people don't want to be sold. So I tell salespeople when I'm training them, the first thing that I want to teach you, quit selling. It
Yep.
doesn't work and no one likes it.
Yeah.
And so what am I supposed to do then? And I say, help them to buy.
Yeah.
The subtle difference between helping them to buy and selling them is profound.
Right. I love the idea of asking questions. And I remember actually when I was at Nextel, I got to sit in a meeting where somebody else is coming in to sell us some software. And I wish I had recorded it or written down his questions, because as a salesperson, I wasn't going to buy the software, the company was, but I was in a meeting for some reason. But I was fascinated and impressed with the way he asked the questions and what they were. Because a lot of people ask questions which can be answered on a brochure, or look at a LinkedIn profile first. But it's those deeper questions that sometimes people feel awkward about, like, how does this impact you personally or professionally, and getting into the true pain. And any tips on getting the person's pain without embarrassing yourself or making them feel awkward?
So you can't go there with question one.
Yeah.
It's
right.
Selling, at the end of the day, selling is the transfer of trust. People do business with people they trust, right? So I've got to make it easy in the conversation early. And it may not even be on the first call that I'm a long tail guy rather than a short tail guy.
Yeah.
I just have to have enough in the funnel that are at different stages that when I go to the grocery store, they let me take my food out because I can pay them. I have to have that, right? But other than that, if I can build a strong enough funnel, they're at different stages and then the checks will come, right? So, you hit on something just a moment ago that I want to play off of. And that is two words that I use in sales that hardly anybody else uses: systems and processes. I want you to go back to the 2,600 salespeople I had, over 100 offices in the nation. And when I would visit, I'd give a similar speech. Here's part of it. There aren't 2,600 best ways to sell this stuff. What do you figure? We figure out the best practices, build the processes, practice the processes, and I bet you we beat the pants off of anybody we compete with.
Right.
And so one of the books that you mentioned was the Sales Playbook for Hypersales growth, literally identifying what the best questions are asked, in the order in which to ask them, and what we think that we're going to hear, and the follow-up question thereon as well, right? But let me even go further.
Please do.
I want to take you back to when I was 13 years old. So I'm a caddy at the country club, and the guys are playing golf on Wednesdays and Fridays and the weekend. My dad worked 6 days a week just to put food on the table. They drove nice cars. They lived in big estate homes. And very quickly I said, I'm the oldest of 5 kids. My brother's 3 years younger than I am. I don't think he ever was bought new clothes. He always got my hand-me-down. So we were a blue-collar-ish type family. I said, gosh, if I had a choice between living like these guys or living like my dad and family, I would choose them. And so I made up a list of questions. It took me about a week. And I said, as I walk this golf course for 4 to 4.5 hours, I'm going to ask these questions.
Wow.
How did you become so successful? What were the 5 things that really were the keys? Any mistakes along the way? What advice would you give to a 13-year-old? And I went through that drill, and I will tell you today, some 60 years later, I can tell you pretty much what I got out of that. 1, you got to have goals, and they need to be in writing. 2, don't pick too many. 3, give a date or an indicator when you're going to have them done. And 4, share them with other people to put the pressure on you. And so at 13, I built my game plan to take me to the age of 30 in 4 goals: financial, professional, education, and family. And once I knew my true north in those 4, then it was just a matter of what do I need to do between 29 and 30, 28 to 29. What do I need to do between 13 and 14 in those 4 boxes? And I've been leading that life ever since. I will tell you, I do that process and have done it 60 consecutive years since I left the golf course. And my recent book, this guy right here, Jack Daly's Life by Design, this thing is just out, and it tells people this is the process. Follow the process and you will lead an incredible, exceptional life. And it's a bit of my life story, but I provide the blanks, the schedules, the process in order for you to develop your game plan. Yeah.
Amazing. That's great. It's available now on Amazon, right, Jack? Daly's Life by Design?
Yeah. And I would also tell the viewer, if you went to jackdalyslifebydesign.com,
Okay.
the appendix is over 100 pages. I put the whole thing up on the website so
Okay.
people could download all of the forms and processes, as well as
wow.
the examples that I've used over my years, so they could see the real live data and how they could play with it.
Wow, that's great. That's great. That will be in the show notes below here on the podcast, folks. Just check it out. The links are right there. Let me ask you a couple of story-based questions. You know, we love telling stories, and those usually are good context for people. What's the most challenging sales management or training thing you ever had to experience? Like a guy who was just like way off, and you were able to bring him back from the dead.
I won't give you that example. I'll give you my real world example.
Right.
That company of 2,600.
Yeah.
In your intro, you mentioned I built 6 companies from scratch. What we didn't say is that I was asked by the board of directors to come into 2 large companies and turn it around.
Yeah.
And that 2,600 is one of those. And when I went in, I wanted to know who are the best guys, and guys are male or female, right? Who are the best guys, and who are the poor performers? And the people I was asking the question to looked at me with a blank stare, and they said, we've never tracked this type of data.
Oh my God.
No one knew. There wasn't a report that said here's the best and worst. So I said, look, I need to know what I got.
Yeah.
So rank the 2,600 based on production numbers today. So after a couple of weeks, they finally give me the data. Watch this. The bottom 25%, 650 salespeople did less than 3% of the sales.
Okay.
The top 25%, 650 salespeople, did 67% of the business. But what I discovered then is where was the leadership spending the most time? On the bottom, because they said the top guys are fine and I got to work on the bottom guys. Well, I said, we don't need to work on them any longer. They are leaving the company. and that became somewhat of a stickler in this old organization that, you know, just didn't move people along. I came off as pretty quickly as being callous and mean and all of those types of things. But once the trauma got behind us, then people just started rejoicing because that 3% of production were our problems. They didn't know enough to bring good business in the house. So all of a sudden our numbers are going through the roof and I am at less cost. So not only is my revenue line being juiced, but my profit line is being juiced as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. And that's kind of the line that my manager gave me when he wanted to have me go out and sell more versus drop off cases. I want to focus on my top guys. Like, okay, yeah, that's fine. But don't try to change my methodology. You want to, like you had said, don't try to affect sales, but focus on the person, right? How could I help him become a better manager versus how could he help me become a better salesperson? Because I knew how to sell, but I could always use help on better support, really.
Yeah. So I'll give you a great example with the top salespeople. When we went through and said, what are they working on? Somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 30% of their day was on things that they shouldn't have been working on. There are things that need to be done in sales, but not necessarily done by the salesperson. So I started to bring in assistants to the top salespeople to do the rudimentary tasks, right? So I could keep my sales guys selling. And now they're relieved of all of this stuff, right? As an example, as a speaker, I travel extensively. Prior to the pandemic, 250,000 air miles in over 30 countries in 1 year, right? It would be foolish for me to book my own travel. But I would tell you that the majority of speakers book their own travel.
I know.
Right. And
Right.
so I coined this expression: if you don't have an assistant, you are one.
I love it. That's good.
Right.
Yeah. That's the first hire is assistant, second hire is how to replace yourself if you're an entrepreneur.
There we go.
Yeah.
For sure. And if you go back and if you're igniting things here. If you want to talk about entrepreneurs, I coach CEOs all over the world via phone. They are spending too much of their time on things that don't move the needle either. It's one of the first things that I have to clean up with them. In fact, I'm going to summarize for an entrepreneur right now the 3 things they need to have their arms around and stay out of everything else. You hire people to build your company. The 3 things you got to nail is 1, vision. And I'm not talking about a mission statement. I want to know clarity. What is it you're trying to build? The second thing is key people in key spots, because that's what's going to leverage the growth of the company. And third, creating a winning culture, creating an environment in the business where people actually get up in the morning and look forward to going to work.
Right.
If my entrepreneurs out there can just nail those 3 things, I'm going to tell you their business is going to flourish.
Yeah. Have you noticed a big change in trying to nurture and grow that culture in the Zoom world?
For sure. It is not the same. But I can tell you that a winning culture is on a platform of 4 legs. And those legs still exist in the virtual world. We just need to execute them differently. One leg is recognition systems. And I'll tell you what, when you're locked up in your room for a year or 2, you better be recognized on a regular basis. So what are your systems to recognize people? Secondly, communication systems. When people are surveyed inside companies, the thing that they grouse about the most is, I wish I knew where we were going, how we were doing. And I wish when the leadership spoke, it was with authenticity and more frequently. So what are your systems to communicate? Third, personal and professional development processes. How am I going to grow? And if you're working out of your home in a pandemic type environment, you're going to feel very isolated and as if you're not going anywhere. So what are the personal and professional development processes? And fourth, empowerment. People want to be in the decision-making role, no matter what their level in the organization is. They don't want to be going through this chain of command. And quite frankly, and I'm an Army veteran. I was a captain in the United States Army a long, long time ago. But the military has recognized this by virtue of Afghanistan, that we need to empower our soldiers right at the line of battle, not move it through the chain of command from a lieutenant to a captain to a major onto a lieutenant colonel and to colonel. That type of nonsense. The enemy will just take you out. Yeah,
the mission is more important than the way to get there.
Right.
Or you phrase it.
We have generals now that are writing books for business people on how to push that empowerment and decision-making down there. I can also tell you another reason that we need to empower our people, and that is that the world has moved to an immediate gratification society.
Yeah.
We want things now. It used to be that you had 3 channels to choose from on TV. Now you have hundreds, and you used to have to get up off your butt and change the channel on the TV. Now you got a remote control, and every time you hit that button, it is changing the chemicals in your mind for immediate gratification. It's no different than me sitting with my phone and saying, "Hey Siri, blah 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 blah," and Siri gives me the answer. Well, if everything about us is immediate gratification, if Amazon is putting your order when you hit click in a truck and everything else that goes on in that process in less than an hour for 10 million packages a day, which is where Amazon is, then you have to play that game of immediate gratification, which means empower your people to make decisions on the spot.
Man, that's the most valuable lesson I've learned today. Thank you so much, Jack. That's really great. Hold that book one more time. I'm going to show people the book, the Jack Daly's Life by Design. Here, I'm going to give you a full screen for a second. Any closing words of advice for people?
So I want to share this one because an awful lot of people know the name Simon Sinek.
Sure.
And if they don't, they need to go watch his TED 15-minute special.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. He's the Start With Why author. This is what Simon said about this book, Jack Daly's Life by Design. Thank God Jack Daly exists. For decades, we hired Jack to teach us how to sell better. Yet all the while, what he was actually teaching us was how to be better human beings.
Love it.
And that's where I'm at these days. I still teach people business, but so many business people are falling short of an exceptional life. And I have been blessed, and I'm very grateful to have not only had some successes in business, but my personal life has been mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It really, truly has. And, at 73 years old, I ask myself this question: are your best days behind you or ahead of you? And the book that I just published says they are ahead of me. And if you go to my website at jackdalyslifebydesign.com, you'll see my goals out there, and you'll see they are really, really ambitious.
I love it. Big, hairy, audacious goals. That's it for today's show. Thank you so much, Jack. I appreciate you.
You bet, Doug. Pleasure.
All right. That concludes our show today for the Author Your Brand Show. Amazing author and businessman and Life by Design by Jack Daly. Check it out. And see you next time on the show. Thank you so much.